Today we're going to be looking at the Hub, a small-sized daily use stroller from Joolz. Joolz as a company has always been a bit hard for me to wrap my brain around, a result of the fact that their marketing seems generally divorced from their engineering philosophy. Both on their webpage and in their promotional videos, the strollers themselves seem constantly overshadowed by an emphasis on their chosen branding aesthetic, which is a mixture of environmental activism and easy-breezy, dare I say hippie or at least hipster lifestyle. But all this tree planting and promoting a sunny, positive lifestyle is really just the fog you must cut through if you want to actually see their products, including the Hub, for what they really are. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mean to sound cynical. I like trees and positivity. But pushing these to the forefront of your advertising while downplaying the strollers themselves is reason for suspicion in my opinion, as though there's something to hide. And what is so bizarre is that there's actually not. Beneath the trees and flowers and a brand name that, I'm sorry, just seems more fitted to selling plastic jewelry to children, is a very shrewd, solid, focused engineering philosophy producing strollers that are meant to last. Let's kick off this review with a few stats. The Hub clocks in at 11.5 kilos and folds down with the seat attached to 66 by 53 by 34 centimeters. It can take up to 5 kilos in the underslung shopping basket and 20 kilos in the seat, which is, by the way, far more than the seat will actually accommodate with relation to the size of your child. And that leads into something I'd like to point out before we get into discussing comfort and functionality. The Hub is small. It's sturdy, but it's small. Even smaller than what would normally be considered a small-sized daily stroller. Seat-wise, it's more in line with the Bugaboo B and the Emelunga NXT30 than the Stokke Scoot or the Baby Jogger City Mini GT, and it should thus be judged this way as well. What this means regarding functionality is that while the seat is decently designed, incorporating a full recline and good canopy coverage, its size means that it will really only comfortably seat children up to around 2.5, depending on the size of the child, of course. As far as your own comfort is concerned, the Hub is going to excel with regards to driving and general reliability. Though limited by its 6-inch front wheels to urban terrain, the Hub has excellent suspension and has tightly constructed wheel mounts, ensuring a pretty smooth driving experience. On top of that, that overall weight of 11.5 kilos, which is heavy for a stroller of this size, has all gone into the quality of the materials with which it's constructed. I'll be talking a lot more about this when we go over the mechanics, but for now, just know that with relation to your experience using the stroller, the Hub is great to drive, again on urban terrain, and is solidly constructed. Other positives include a decently sized shopping basket with a hinged back wall for better accessibility, a compact fold with the seat attached, and one of my all-time favorites, a shoulder strap to carry it around when it's folded. The Hub is also simple to maintain, with easily removable textiles and a predominance of screws instead of rivets at several crucial points, making it possible to open up the mechanisms in case something needs to be fixed. Where the Hub may fail for some people is, paradoxically, the qualities with which they actually focus their advertising for the Hub, rather than focusing on its sturdy mechanical attributes. What they refer to as ergonomics, spelled with a Z, by the way, in one of their promotional videos, meaning ease of functionality, really, and incorporating a few different qualities. One is weight, and we've already established that the Hub is heavy for its size. A second would be how user-friendly the mechanisms are, how softly and smoothly they form-fit the fingertips as you depress buttons and pull triggers in order to adjust the seat or fold the stroller. The Hub is okay here, but not great. Not the worst, but also not so good that this should be one of their selling points. Overall, the buttons and triggers on the Hub are a bit tough to activate. In particular, the safety harness, but also the folding triggers, which, due to higher quality internal components, can feel a bit heavy, especially if not lubricated properly. Also related to this idea of ergonomics is the current obsession with one-handed folding, which is not a characteristic of the Hub and which is way overrated in my opinion, and bad from an engineering perspective, because it forces manufacturers to incorporate a high number of otherwise unneeded small plastic components that compromise the longevity of their designs. For me, all of these ergonomic factors are more than made up for by the Hub's exceptional sturdiness and drivability, but I know that they do matter to some people. Okay, let's move on to the mechanics of the Hub, top to bottom. Okay, we're going to start by talking about the handle and the folding mechanism. With regards to the handle, you adjust the height of the handle via these metal levers here at the top. This is a very solidly constructed system. It's very actually uncommon that this sort of a system would be using metal on most strollers. And what that has, the reason it is solidly constructed at the top is because the activation line that runs down and hits that locking mechanism at the bottom of this internal handle is a bit thicker than you would commonly see on a lot of strollers. When it comes down to the folding mechanism, you activate the folding mechanism up here with triggers, and it will first release the point at which this these two discs here lock together. And then once that reaches a certain point, as you're pushing it down, it will unlock a second mechanism here at the bottom, which then folds the whole thing. Now this whole folding system is something they use on pretty much all their strollers with a little bit of variation, and it's something that they have been improving over about a decade with their the day models. And there have been in the past some problems with the day models with some symmetry issues where you can't get the mechanisms to unlock properly on both sides, but as I said, they've gone through several iterations of that, so I don't anticipate there being a lot of problems with that with the hub as you saw on some of the earlier day models. One area that could potentially have some problem has to do with that whole double unlocking system, where it first unlocks the discs and then unlocks the point here at the bottom. That could eventually lead to some sorts of symmetry issues, as it's a lot of moving parts that have to activate each other over the process of the folding. But again, Joolz is pretty good at incorporating mainly metal components on their internal mechanisms and keeping them as simple as they possibly can in order to get everything working properly. So there's a good chance you won't have any sort of major problems without accidents occurring with that system as well. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at the rear frame now of this stroller. It does have 10-inch rear wheels, so while we're thinking about this as like a daily type stroller, that's a bit small. But when you actually look at the stroller, as I said, as more of a like luxury travel stroller size, a little bit smaller than a small size daily stroller, but even for a small size daily stroller, 10 inch is actually quite fine. It's a quite solid size for rear wheels of a stroller of this sort and caliber. It has excellent suspension. The hub has excellent suspension both in the back and the front, but as far as the rear is concerned, it's this really big heavy unit here on both sides. So that's real quality. The stroller is going to be limited because of the size of the front wheels in particular in terms of what sort of terrain you could drive it on. I feel this is done on purpose to some extent. It's not meant as an off-road stroller, but as far as an urban sort of urban driving stroller, the suspension on it, both in the back and the front, is going to allow you to go over like manicured park type terrain and gravel, a little bit rougher urban style or light suburban terrain. When it comes down to the brake system, very simple sort of a brake system. It rotates there, rotates off again, and what this does is just rotate a pair of pins into a position where they can shoot out into the wheels. They're solidly constructed holes on the backside of the wheel for taking in that pin. Whole system is done with metal, nice large diameter on the pin itself, so probably not going to have any problems with bending. Overall, the rear end of the stroller, very, very well constructed. Don't really have any problems with any of it. When it comes to the front end of the stroller then, I would again say front wheels are 6 inches or 6.3 inches. So that's like the same as a Bugaboo Chameleon, which is a little bit larger of a stroller. So like more of a mid-size style, still not going to have any sort of real terrain capability, but when you're looking at it again as a smaller stroller, 6 inches is actually quite nice. The wheel forks have heavy-duty suspension here at the top. It's a little bit better than average actually for inbuilt fork suspension. In addition to that, the way the overall chassis is constructed means that this locking point, that sort of second activated locking point that I talked about, does add a little bit additional suspension, simply because it is like a heavy-duty plastic that it's made of, and there's going to be a certain amount of tensile strength also provided there, which is going to have a little bit of a suspension, a secondary suspension effect as well. When it comes to wobble protection, there are no sort of inbuilt spring pads in here, but the way the wheels attach into the top housing does create essentially protection against wobble problems. Wobble problems are created when the housing for the axle wears down over time and it becomes loose in a horizontal axis, and then when you go too fast the wheels wobble. But I really doubt that you'll see any of those sort of problems with the hub, simply because first off the axle protrudes down from the frontal housing and locks in here, and if you'll notice there is a very large raised plastic rim around, which is going to fit into a well on the underside here, so that provides 2 points at which those front forks are going to lock in place. The one thing that I think is a little bit unfortunately engineered on the front end is actually the swivel locks. You lock it here, the wheel has to be perfectly in line for it to lock.
and then the wheel kind of clicks in place. It's kind of stylish to do this sort of a locking system, but the problem with it is that it's far too accessible to the terrain around. So you have possibilities with it accidentally locking. There have been some problems with that with the day in the past, but more importantly, I think there's going to be problems with it accidentally unlocking if you want to use the swivel lock. When it comes to the wheels themselves, generally with the construction of the rims and stuff and the locking mechanisms, I am very satisfied. I would like to make one last note though, which is that the rubber or the foam that Joolz tends to use on their wheels is not of the highest quality. I mean, there is worse, but there is better as well. I do notice that they tend to wear down over time. They are also susceptible to heat. So if you have this in a hot environment and it's pressing up against something, you will get some deformation of the wheels themselves. Overall, though, that's kind of a small thing. I don't think it was an intention to use lower quality materials, and they probably did it in order to add maybe a little bit of extra suspension to it, even though it's already well suspended.
So, should you consider getting the Hub? Yes, absolutely. At least as long as it fits your life conditions. The Hub is perfect for parents who need a small, capable stroller for use in urban and light suburban terrain, for children up to around 2.5. Despite not having a one-hand fold and being a little overweight, the compact size of the Hub and the ability to fold it with the seat attached also makes it quite car-friendly. And by building it with good suspension, excellent materials, a mechanical emphasis on simple mechanisms, and those tiny front wheels to make sure you don't abuse it in rough terrain, the Hub is actually probably even worth Joolz' gamble of selling it with a lifetime guarantee. In any case, we hope you found this video interesting, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us continue making videos in the future. Thank you.